Farmers that adopt it start to pull away from the ones that don't, and then that itself would inspire them to...
It's already sort of
Right.
happened. A lot of the lead generative farms now have hybrid business models. So they maintain a relationship with their historic buyer, whether that was a grain merchant or whether that was selling a particular high-value item into the supermarkets, and then opened up essentially their own retail or B2B. And there's endless case studies of successful farmers and conferences to where farmers to listen to absolute detail of how those farmers went on that journey and how they established their brand, their customer base, and how they manage their inventory, etc.
That's kind of integration from the farm direct to the consumer. Was
yes,
at the moment buyers in the middle.
Yeah, and they're ending up with product.
And the development of what's called local food hubs is at the most basic level is where a group of farmers have loosely formed cooperative.
Sure.
So they're pooling their produce in order to satisfy demand, often in a local area. Right. And this is quite easy. This will develop quite fast, we think, in the UK and Europe because of the density of population is quite evenly spread across a relatively small landscape. So given farmer in the UK is probably, a lot of them are within 10 miles or 15 miles of a point of saturation, a customer base that can probably absorb their farm.
Right. So how does that work? Is that like market type stuff or
like
a food hub? How would that work?
It's the Evill of the farmers market.
I see.
It will have elements of, Riverford. There'll be lots more.
Evill and Colt.
The consumer will expect online delivery component to it. They'll expect a degree of convenience that they're not getting at farmers. People don't go to farmers markets to buy their groceries. Generally speaking, go to the farmers market for an experience, family, and they buy a few items. So this is more of a serious...
It's probably like a smaller percentage of their total grocery spend for the week. Yeah, it's like a few special.
But there have been waves of tech startups across Europe that have spotted this, let's say, this opportunity to decentralize the food system and challenge the supermarkets. Right. And we continue to see waves of innovation in that area. The truth of it is, particularly during COVID and post-COVID, forced to buy this way, online, at least temporarily, because the supermarket shelves were empty. And I think that's sort of broken the dominance of the supermarkets to a degree, at least psychologically in the minds of consumers. As in that real estate, if you like, those gigantic out-of-town supermarkets are no longer the dominant forces. Even with the supermarkets, you can see that they have shifted over the last 15 years towards smaller retail units. And as Chris was mentioning earlier, they're rebranding their own brand products with these sort of farms colloquialisms, trying to make it sort of cute. So I think they do recognise that consumer preferences and habits are starting to change.
Can we put
Sure.
I drank 15 pints of coconut water before getting
here. Have a little break.
That, right?
That was a good hour and a bit anyway, yeah.
I suppose what we're keen to do is to show the LP community, LPs are investors into funds, those that have put climate as a focus within climate, soil building as a lever to, as I said at the very beginning of all of this, restore weather, create habitat, therefore biodiversity, and ultimately produce nutritious food. This is an incredibly strong lever for the greatest issues that humanity is facing, necessarily understood as a brilliantly investable asset class. And what we want to show is that the underlying companies that we have the pleasure of being able to understand a bit more fully are very much able to generate the venture return profiles that we as a very vanilla venture fund, and I say vanilla in terms of the structure and the way we're set up, for the simple reason that we need to be able to attract the more institutional investors to this space in a way that they haven't previously necessarily prioritized. And so, I won't sit here and bang the drum on all of our investments, but if we were to pick maybe three, cover the value chain. We've spoken briefly about the lending platform. If we were to look at you could look at a company like FA Bio. I suppose this is still more on farm, but it was our first decision with a fungal microbe discovery platform that is replacing traditional chemical inputs. And it was the first time that we've decided to work with big ag. So it's working with the large players to replace products that they have, or crops and particular diseases in particular locations. And so in this instance, it might be a fungal microbe that has been taken from North Dakota to look at yellow wheat in rust. And it's an exciting business model from our perspective, in that each one of these product lines has a value of 50 million, which we think is often fairly conservative. And they can produce between 5 and 15 of these a year. We modeled
5 and 15 what?
of separate products.